super excited to welcome you back to our Connected Giraffe webinar series. This is the first one this year. There's many more to come. For today's session, we are looking at the results of our packaging survey 2022. We asked more than 270 FMCG and packaging professionals for their opinions, and we received some highly interesting insights. Will connected packaging campaigns become mainstream this year? How much do marketers plan to invest in digital? Do they plan to invest more? And how much do they invest in connected packaging this year? Why are brands considering connected packaging? Well, we will reveal everything, and we will discuss the industry trends and make some predictions for this year. But before I start, I would like to share some numbers with you. The panelists here today are some very experienced packaging experts who would like to discuss all the facts and figures with you. I have the pleasure to introduce to you Frank Smits, Business Development Manager, RFID Europe at Avery Dennison, Angela Simondi, Marketing Director for Greater Middle East Africa for Tetra Pak, Matt Ward, Print and Digital Division Director at Transcend Packaging Limited, and Paul Jenkins, Founder and Managing Director of the Pack Hub, the leading packaging innovation consultancy. A very big welcome to you all. I'm really interested and excited to be talking through the data from this survey with you and discuss some trends that we think will be coming up for this year. But to get the conversation started, I wanted to ask each one of you a fact that maybe not everybody or 70 people on this webinar know about you, so we can get to know you a little better. I'll start with you, Paul, because you're in my right left-hand corner. Welcome. Tell us your interesting fact.
Yeah, this is an interesting fact that every single person of my friends and family group know about, because I go on about it all the time. But about 9 years ago, I appeared in a recurring TV ad campaign for Sky Sports as a sort of a recurring fan in the crowd. So I was spotted numerous times. I got texts and emails, and so that's my 30 minutes of fame, I guess. I've never achieved anything since then.
I love it. Good claim to fame. Thank you, Paul. Over to you, Matt. What's your interesting fact?
Oh, good afternoon, everyone. My interesting fact is I'm a 3rd Dan black belt in karate, run my own club, and I'm a qualified instructor. There you go.
Scared of you now. Thank you, Matt.
There you go. Watch what you're doing. Watch what you're saying.
Brilliant stuff. Frank, over to you. What's your interesting fact?
Well, my interesting fact is that I'm a huge fan of France. I try to spend as many holidays a year as I can with the whole of the family. And when I'm actually not located in France, I try to think of France over a good glass of French wine.
Good stuff, and some pâté and some cheese.
Exactly.
Brilliant. Angela, over to you.
And I'm coming from the mountains, so from the Alps, north of Italy. I love skiing, but I have a sailing license, and I'm a diver as well. So
oh, wow.
Both worlds, I would say.
A very, very talented panel, not only in packaging, but in sports and everything else. Well, thank you so much. Good to get to know you all a little bit more. I'm going to dive straight into the data from the packaging survey. So I'm going to share my screen and crack on. Give me a nod, panelists, if you can see the screen. Good. All right, so what did we have? We had 10 questions. We had 257 respondents. This was a survey which was carried out in November 2021. 2 respondents working as C-suite, advertising, procurement, travel, or finance. As you can see here, almost 50% were FMCG, and very small minorities in the finance and travel. The question we asked, first of all, is how many brands have already found benefits from connected experiences? And interestingly, 46% of respondents who had already incorporated connected experiences into their marketing plans, which of course meant that 54 still haven't done, so almost half and half. So the question we asked then, of course, was for the 54 that haven't, what was it really, the reason behind that? And the reason behind that was really that they would be finding it increasingly important over the next 12 months. And the reason that they were looking to do so was for valuable data and insights. They also believe that although they haven't used it yet, it will become the main route to communicating directly with consumers, customers, 57%. 25% thought that it encourages customer loyalty, and another 56 had a sustainable way to connect with and educating customers. So some really interesting reasons there of why they believe it will become important. And what do they believe the main benefits of connected experiences are? So again, we see data up there. We saw information, so being able to inform about the products, being able to inform consumers about marketing decisions. Also, we have here the possibility of direct interactions with consumers, so the ability to open up that direct channel, and then again, education around the particular product. And you can see other things here, much more in the minority. So we looked at data collection being there, so being able to look at the average time spent, being able to look at age and gender, being able to understand the consumer, being able to understand who is actually purchasing this particular product, and of course all of the data collection being GDPR compliant, so another way to be able to collect data. But what about the barriers? So we had a lot of people there, just over half, who hadn't yet started using connected experiences. And what were the barriers there? Well, you could see that 29% felt that they didn't require it. 25%, however, were still thinking about it, but not just ready yet. And 10% too expensive. Everything else being minimal from a statistical point of view. So are you planning a new connected packaging campaign next year? We can see 41%, next year being 2022, 41% planning for that to happen. Do you think connected packaging will be increasingly important? So interestingly, 85%, yes. Yet not everyone planning it for this year. So if yes, why? Valuable data and insights, that it will become a main route to the consumer, it will engage customer loyalty as we talked about, but also it's a sustainable way to connect with your consumer. So really interesting that was being pinpointed there as well. If no, why? Well, you can see here the large proportion, customers don't really use it. And we can look at that. It's too expensive or complex. So there seems to be a lot of education that needs to happen around both the pricing, but also the technology itself. And then again, small areas there around not familiar, too unfamiliar. So again, a lot there around education. Is connected packaging attractive to help improve sustainability credentials of your company? So not necessarily being able to connect in a sustainable manner, but actually to educate the sustainable credentials of your company. 79, nearly 80% of respondents there actually said yes. So again, a really interesting way in which the people that we surveyed, who were randomly chosen, actually felt this was a great way to be able to communicate sustainability messages. So coming out to the roundup of the questions, again, picking up on sustainability, we can see that 49% consider connected packaging important because it is a sustainable way to engage with customers, and also that it will be a sustainable way to educate customers around their particular credentials and their particular campaign around sustainability. What about a Christmas-themed connected packaging experience? Could you imagine that being part of your Christmas marketing campaign? Interestingly, over half, 56%, believe that also a Christmas-themed experience could make part of their marketing plan for the year. So we've got there a very clear reason for sustainability messaging, but also we've got a reason here in terms of marketing campaigns and seasonality. Are you increasing your digital marketing spend for 2022? The majority on a yes, nearly 60% increasing their digital marketing spend. If so, by how much? And there, of course, you can see some interesting facts there. on how much increase happening across the board. And then finally, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important will connected packaging be to your business in 2022? You can see here that 10 being important and 1 being unimportant. You have the largest there, certainly in the top end, and number 7 and number 8 out of 10, 10 being the most important. So ranking really high on how important that will be for this year. So we can see that connected experiences investment is expected to increase. We can see that 54% have already incorporated connected experience into their marketing plans. We can consider it, 85% consider it to be increasingly important to the packaging industry for this year and the next 12 months, and 59% plan to increase their digital investment. So some really interesting facts there. I'm going to take us back to our panelists here. 54% have already incorporated, which was a surprise to me to be so many, and then maybe not so surprising, 59% looking to increase their investment. Angela, 41% of respondents are planning a new connected packaging campaign this year. Is that surprising to you?
I would say it's already a very good result. I mean, we have seen in the past the shift from traditional advertising to more social media, and now I'm seeing that we are kind of evolving from social media traditional way to, because it's already become traditional now, way to communicate to consumer into connected packages. I mean, it's great. It's a really new way to engage more with final consumer. It's more like in social media, you can just risk to be scrolled away, just scrolling through Facebook or Instagram. While if you make them engage into the pack, they are really engaged, and you can lock in their attention for a span of a couple of minutes and deliver more target content to them.
And is that why you think that campaigns work better, because you've got that opportunity to have a longer conversation?
Yeah, and also because you have more interested people, more curious people, just to go and see what it is. And then, like, having them also interacting with you, you will gather the data. So let's say that whenever you do the next campaign, you will do even better.
Absolutely. Matt, anything to add there? What benefits do you think connected packaging can bring to your business as a manufacturer?
Well, as a manufacturer, one of my key drivers within Transcend is digital produced packaging, and actually it sort of ties in really well with connected packaging, because all the great things you can do with digital packaging, digital production, actually connected packaging gives another string to our bow, if you like, because whilst we want to personalize, we want to co-create content, we want to do all these great things as a marketing tool, actually connected packaging sort of takes it to the next level. So it makes it, we can make packaging tangible and more tactical for brands, but actually the connected bit makes it much more interactive. And I think what I'm finding is that as a manufacturer, that this sort of thing is attracting brands to us. They're interested in the opportunities, but also, mainly because they know they're going to get more bang for their buck with the packaging. They're going to get increased brand equity. It's really going to help them sell that story right the way through and build kind of brand loyalty.
I mean, it's basically giving, as you say, an extra string to your bow, but it's actually creating a marketing channel from the packaging itself, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's important is that, even though we're a manufacturer, the market has changed so much that we need to be able to work with agencies. We need to be able to, talk to marketing clients as such, because traditionally, if you speak to anybody in packaging or print, they'll say, yeah, we have to talk to the procurement guys. It's all about procurement. But actually, I think there's been a big shift in the actually marketing, brand marketing, and sort of promotional teams are getting far more involved now. So there's a bit more balance there.
Yeah, and there's lots of different types of technology. Frank, you know, we've had several conversations. There's QR codes, which obviously smartphones are able to recognise. But I think also with the smartphones now being able to have NFC functionalities enabled, do you think that there will be new advertising technologies in connected packaging? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Let me share a slide to actually represent what we think will be the next new thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, tell us.
So what we all, of course, saw that we as Avery Dennison, we were there in the start when we kicked it off with the standard barcode technology, any QR codes. What we of course see now, there's a huge increase in demand on UHF and NFC technology. We see more and more brands being interested in all the advantages of NFC, and I'll get back to that in a second. But of course, it does not stop with NFC usage. We're seeing more and more applications where actually you can also consider Bluetooth technology.
Mm-hmm.
All smartphones nowadays also have Bluetooth inside. And we as Avery Dennison, we will continue to invest in new technologies. You can think of also printed antennas directly on packaging.
Mm-hmm.
And getting back to the Bluetooth beaconing, you can also think about technology like Williot. Williot is a technology where actually you can harvest energy from RF waves all around you and actually read unique IDs with Bluetooth technology. But actually, in addition to that, you can also read temperature, or you can actually read if a packaging has been opened with or not. So still enabling functionality of a smartphone, but taking it to the next level. Yeah, that's really the next innovation we see as Avery Dennison.
Yeah, and I mean, some of the things that you're talking about, obviously we're focusing on connected packaging, but I think that, you know, some of this technology can probably be used outside. I mean, are there more applications to this technology?
Yeah, for sure. What we see that, yeah, NFC of course seems, yeah, it seems an easy way, way more easy way to connect. We have a lot of discussions on why NFC compared to data matrix. Well, what we see is that it's simply this way more easy to connect with NFC than with standard QR code. It's simple tap of the phone instead of using a special app. Yeah, and for sure, it also doesn't take away any real estate branding. Yeah, so it can be incorporated in the packaging instead of any printed code. Yeah, and many people always say, well, I'm printing the packaging label anyhow, so why should I use NFC? But NFC can also bring you way higher level of authentication. You can even consider tamper loop detection. And with that, I mean that you can add a tamper loop to your NFC tag, and then you can actually see if a packaging has been tampered with. We see a huge increase of brands being aware of their brand itself. They want to protect their brand. And if you can actually see from a distance, so real time, if somewhere in the world your packaging has been opened or not, and actually might have been refilled, it's a very strong advocate for using NFC compared to any other printed technology.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. What do you think? I mean, there's so many different technologies out there, and you don't need to have an app anymore for QR, but also there's the ability here to harness energy and you know, look at anti-counterfeit. What do you think is so effective in integrated packaging campaigns?
Well, we also did a survey ourselves a while ago, where we connected with over 1,200 C-suite people in the logistics and supply chain, and yeah, we all heard the same, that people are concerned about transparency of supply chain. They are concerned about brand protection. What we actually see happening now is that they see that NFC technology can work both ways. It's not that the consumer is getting more demanding on what he's gonna eat, what he's gonna put inside his body when we're talking about pharmaceutical packaging, but also these brands can now actually do the last mile connectivity using NFC, but also have a transparent supply chain when you can use NFC. And that has to do with just the fact that you can actually combine it with geolocation. But also the advantage of NFC is that you can actually add data into the NFC chip. So when a packaging has been opened, for example, that is not wanted, you can immediately write it into the tag. But you can also think of the fact that it is way easier to read without interaction needed from the consumer at home. You can also think about industrial ways of reading NFC. And yeah, the trend we see, and you already showed it in your survey, is that this whole digitalization has grown dramatically. And we think it also has to do with COVID-19. And we see that especially in retail, that this whole digital transformation, that was already a buzzword at 2020, but now through COVID-19, we feel that this really stepped the accelerator, and we find ourselves actually in the phase that we were supposed to be 5 years actually ahead. So that's what we see with many projects. This year, 2022, we're dealing now with projects on supply chain transparency and brand connectivity, where we thought we would be in 2026. So very interesting trends, I must say.
Absolutely, big trends. And thank you, Frank. Thanks a lot. Paul, over to you. I mean, there's a lot of trends there. Frank's just telling us about how, you know, quickly we've been able to move through digitization. We saw 58% will be focusing on connected packaging as the main route. What do you think? You're a packaging expert. Do you think connected packaging could be the mainstream promotion method for FMCG?
Yeah, I think I was pleasantly surprised by the survey results. I thought they were even more positive than anticipated, and particularly I wrote down a comment or a statement about being the main route to communicating directly with consumers. So I think that is a very positive thing to consider. I mean, you know, as a becoming mainstream is something quite significant, and you know, mainstream means volume, it means ubiquity, it means everyone is embracing this technology. So there are clearly some challenges to that. You know, challenges around cost. You know, things like lower value items, product items will be less appealing for some of the more expensive technical solutions, but the costs are coming down, so those opportunities will increase. I think the opportunities to further improve the sustainability of connected packaging, and I know that Frank and his wider team are doing some really good work on, you know, sort of paper-based type solutions and better recyclability, fewer materials and things like that, just to make the actual hardware, if you like, more sustainable. I actually posted a poll. I'd like to say I did it was as part of a planned sort of data gathering process this week, but I did a poll. I do a poll every Monday to our 10,000 followers, the pack up to 10,000 followers on LinkedIn, and the question was, will the growth of NFC, specifically, will the growth of NFC and RFID continue this year? And 4 days in, 77% said yes. So that for me is a further validation that the results you've picked up on are being supported by the PackUps network on LinkedIn. So all in all, I think, I mean, it's never going to be mainstream in that it's utilised by everybody, if that's what mainstream means, but certainly there's a huge continued opportunity to continue to grow in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, you know, there's so many new technologies. There's William as well, as Frank was talking about in terms of Bluetooth. Of course, we've got the standard QR. And then obviously NFC, as we're talking about as well, that just helps open up the opportunities. One of the main reasons respondents were confident about increasing the importance of connected packaging was around the valuable data insights. And as we looked at, we can track anything from GDPR compliant data, session length, time of day, the city in which they are, user preferences. Does a consumer prefer an apple flavour next to a chocolate orange, which would be my preference, flavoured milk? Angela, what can you comment around that? How are your clients feeling about the data that they can get from the connected experiences?
Data, I think, is really like the big chunk, because it's really the one that then will allow you to fine tune, but also to better understand your consumer. Because yes, you can still have retail data. However, those are like static, while here you know what they were doing while they were using, for example, all the experience. If they were focusing more on gaming, who was focusing more on the gaming, who was more maybe reading, if they were redeeming couponing. I mean, again, with the connected experience, you have like a multiple choice of things that you can offer to your consumer. So based on that one, you can give it a try for the first time and then really refine and go more specific and targeted. And you can also do different things depending on, for example, you were mentioning the flavor milk. So for flavor milks, maybe you can do a type of experience because there's a certain target, while, for example, talking about milk, plain milk, you can do completely different things. You can put a playlist like playing around, putting music. I mean, you can really do infinite number of things, and that's for me the biggest potential of the overall experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've done some AR and some questionnaires and some gamification and 3D, 2D. There's so many options. So that's the great stuff that customers can be doing. But we saw also there's about half who are still not doing it yet. We saw some of the biggest barriers in the questionnaire. What do you think is the biggest barrier stopping brands from embracing this?
I think it's also awareness of that they can use these new type of technologies, and this like the package as another channel of communication. Mm-hmm. Once because it's they are more familiar now with all the social media and other things. Right now it's more like getting if they are aware of this new way of doing a campaign, that can also be something different. And bless you. And for me, that's like also another way to tackle different type of occasion while the consumer is using your products. Because maybe you're thinking that he's using it in the morning at breakfast, and then you're going to find out that he's using it, I don't know, in the afternoon or at night before going to bed. So it's really more like to educate the people that this can be like a really powerful tool for the experience you are delivering and for the data that you're going to get back. And honestly say, it is not such a huge investment. I mean, let's say that you are in control of the investment. You can do like things that are much more expensive. Like if you do all augmented reality, maybe that's where you are spending more. But if you are doing more like gamification, other things, I mean, it's for, I would say that you can really tailor-made according to your budget. And it's quick enough as well then to change, and to also when you are like live, is also quick to change things. And that's the flexibilities that I think it's is needed whenever you go live with these experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the biggest one is the one that you picked up on, which is awareness of how to do it. But then cost as well, that was up there. And you're quite right. It depends on what you want to do. If you want to make a 50-level game and put lots of different AR and 3D, it is going to be more expensive than perhaps a simple questionnaire. But yeah, I think you're right. It's about what you really need to be able to do what you need to achieve. Paul, what do you think? What are the biggest benefits to brands who are embracing this type of technology?
Well, I think there's multiple benefits, and that's one of the huge advantages of this type of platform. Ultimately, engaging with consumers and shoppers is a brand manager's holy grail, isn't it? I mean, to be able to have dialogue on a almost on a one-to-one basis is what brand managers probably lie in bed dreaming about. It can create a real point of difference in the market, an opportunity to stand for something. If you're a cooking brand, you've got an opportunity to be known for the brand that's always sharing great ingredients or is creative, or you can hone in on the brand values and use that as a sort of a platform as part of the communication strategy. Obviously, we mentioned, I was going to talk about data and insight and user experience understanding, but I think that's been brilliantly captured by Angela. But again, that is an important factor. Anti-counterfeiting, again, Frank mentioned that. That's a significant challenge in many more premium markets, and we're seeing time and time again smart packaging being utilised to communicate the supply chain journey, to reassure consumers, and just to reduce the likelihood of counterfeit products going in the market. So I guess ultimately, in some cases, it's not just about brand building and engagement, it's about selling more products. So I think ultimately that is the one of the drivers for doing it in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. We can't forget that piece. Communication is key. But if we know that people want to have chocolate orange milk like I do, then as a manufacturer, you can create the product that people want to have. So, absolutely. And that will therefore make sure that you generate more sales. Absolutely. So on to sustainability, we saw that 80% consider it to improve the sustainability credentials of the company. That's pretty interesting. Matt, on top of attracting audiences to engaging campaigns, what do you think about the importance of sustainability? Is this important for audiences?
Well, I'm a little bit biased because I would say it's really, really really important to everything. So, transcend packaging, it's kind of in our DNA, sustainability. That was a big part of why the company was formed. So we're about removing single-use plastics. We're about helping people manage supply chain, and that's really where digital production comes into it really well. So it's not just about material. It's actually about, okay, how can I produce less? Let me print only what I need. How can I do that and limit my warehouse cost exposure, my warehouse space exposure? How can I, almost print on demand? There's a lot more sort of requirement for that sort of stuff. I think, as Frank mentioned, the pandemic brought so many things into sharp focus. And has really accelerated so many things, from technology to pharmaceuticals, all kinds of things. But what I found is that lots and lots of things, everybody says, if I go back 3 years, everybody was saying we want to be more sustainable, we want to be eco-friendly, but actually they were kind of talking the talk but not walking the walk, because it was more expensive, or it was seen as a ticket that you needed to be carrying, not actually doing. And I think what the pandemic has done for us is by bringing that into sharp focus. There's a transition that I see going on with our customers where they are actually now getting serious about it. And I think they're getting serious about it mainly because consumers are really serious about it. So they're, however it's happened, they've influenced the influencer. The consumer is really cares about it. Therefore, the brands are starting to really care about it. So I can see why that's such an important thing from a connected packaging. Being able to really convey that message, I think, is vital. And
we talked about COVID-19, or Frank touched on COVID-19. You've just done the same. I mean, do you think that's the biggest impact around people's focus on sustainability and eco-friendly, or is there something else that you think has been impacted as well by COVID-19?
I mean, in terms of the impact of COVID-19 on kind of packaging, full stop, I'm not going to sit here and moan about the big issue of the day, which is raw material. There was lots and lots of things changed during the pandemic. I don't think that's the only reason that people are all of a sudden becoming more focused on sustainability. There's lots and lots of other messaging around there you know, in the news about climate change, about all of the sort of ecological things. So I think it was going to get there anyway, but what the pandemic's done is really brought it into sharp focus and accelerated it. It's brought it more in, you know, brought it more into consciousness, really.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think as well, one of the things that the pandemic did in terms of the QR codes, for example, was really kind of brought the QR codes into, you know, into everybody's life. I think before the QR code was kind of a little bit snubbed and, oh, you know, it's a QR code. And I think marketeers didn't really think of using it. It was more of an old technology, perhaps. But I think technology's moved forward in the same way that phones now have the NFC capabilities, the cameras have the capabilities and have done for the last couple of years to open and scan QR codes. And I think that that's also kind of helping brands to see the potential that the QR code, I mean, if you're walking into a restaurant or a bar, you're using a QR code to access the menu, for example. So that's something in your everyday life. Paul, do you see anything around that, you know, COVID-19 in particular making an impact on the packaging industry in terms of connected packaging?
Yeah, I mean, you summarised it perfectly. I think what it's done is it's brought QR code back into the mainstream. You know, many people couldn't be bothered. You know, both end users and brands to embrace it. As you said, it seemed like an old technology, but we've all been forced through this hideous disease, you know, pandemic to re-engage with QR codes, and it is so much easier than it used to be when it first launched. And you'd have to you know, download an app and then open the app, and you know, you just literally phone camera, and it's just straight to the website or whatever within 2 or 3 seconds. It's faster than typing anything. So, you know, young and old have been forced, if you like, to use it, which just opens up the opportunity for QR codes for brands so much more, because you've gone from 2% using it to 90% using it. So I just think that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, no, exactly. And like you say, it's everyone as well, because, you know, the track and trace app is QR code based. So even like you say, you've got grandmas using QR codes as well. So it's not just a young technology, which I think sometimes that happens with technology. It's only aimed at the younger group.
And it also goes without saying that everyone has got the hardware now. Let's say everyone, most people have smartphones, so you don't have that issue where people don't have the technology in their hands. And if you said years ago that you'd have something that everyone would be able to connect with their packaging through, you know, that they're carrying with them all the time, you would jump at that opportunity. So I think we almost take for granted the ubiquity of smartphones in our lives, which just opens up these opportunities for us.
Absolutely, absolutely. Angela, Paul's based in the UK, but you're based out in the Middle East. Do you see any differences? I mean, do you see any more? Is it more people embracing smartphones? Is there any kind of differences between Europe and the Middle East?
Here they have multiple smartphones if you want. So the number of smartphones per capita is like from 2 to 3. So definitely in this part of the world, I mean, UAE, KSA, Kuwait, I would say all the Gulf, technology is well penetrated. So it's a good region where all these connected experience can definitely work. As plus it's a young population as well. But as you were saying, during pandemic, I mean, everybody gets accustomed to use the QR code back again. So it's not only the young and the one more digital native, but all the other ones as well, like elder. Mm-hmm. But in terms of population here, yes, I mean, the number of hours that they are spending on the internet, like YouTube and other things, it's really like much higher. They were talking about like 5 hours per day per person. So definitely if you are doing something that goes through the phone, it's definitely going to be a hit.
Yeah, 5 hours a day on your phone, so there's not a lot of work they've done.
not for work. It's just for leisure, I would say.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, brilliant. Matt, we talked about data being the number one reason as why connected experiences are valuable with Angela and her customers. What about what you're saying? Is that in general the same as the brands that you talk to?
Yeah, I mean, what I was going to say just on the point of the pandemic and the impact, one of the things I think, everybody became more online. Everyone started, buying commerce because we had to. And there was a big, I can't remember who it was that said it, but one of the guys I was talking to said, you know what, everything's going to be online. Absolutely everything's going online. This is the death knell for the packaging industry and promotional. It's all going to be online. And actually, I think the smart money has very much been about people that see offline online collaboration working, which is exactly what we do and what you guys do, in terms of QR codes and making that connected experience work. That's really important. I think the personalized experience is something that is so important. That's something that is really, really gaining traction. And the customers I speak to, the brands I speak to, it's all about the experience. So they're not just saying, I want a really nice pack. They might say, well, I want a personalized pack, or I want to co-create some content, which again comes down to good data. They might say all of those things, but actually they want an experience for the consumer. And I think everybody acknowledges from a data perspective, if you own the data, then you kind of own the consumer in lots of ways, because you can guide and shape and deliver transparency of the supply chain. There's all kinds of things you can do. Speak to them about sustainability. You can talk to them about anything really, and the sky's the limit, isn't it, in terms of how much you want to interact with them.
Definitely, and as you say, you can kind of take them on that journey because you've then segmented that selection of customers. I think Angela touched on it as well, saying, well, if we know that those particular customers did this, well, that's the journey that we take them on. And of course, ultimately, again, as Paul said, that helps to drive sales. We've got a question. We've got a couple of questions in from the audience. This one I think is for you, Frank. It's from Andrea, so thanks very much. We had a scandal in Germany with COVID vaccines that were no longer usable because they were stored incorrectly. A functional NFC label could have indicated perhaps the storage conditions. Is that something that it would be applicable at Avery Dennison?
Yeah, well, it's a great question. We actually do have NFC temperature tags that actually store the temperature during the whole supply chain. And then you can actually use NFC as communication tool to read what the temperature has been during the travel through the supply chain. And you can set thresholds so you get automatic alerts. So that's all possible. It's just not always taking into consideration because of the rush of the vaccines that had to go out. But there is technology out there that actually can do that.
Yeah. And I think that kind of opens up another area. With Tetra Pak, we've been doing quite a lot of kind of gamification and questionnaire, but there you're talking about an application of connected experiences. It's kind of really more talking around the safe storage and the information of that product while it's in a consumer's house or while it's being stored. And then Matt, you were talking about transparency of supply chain. So there's lots of different use cases out there as well. I don't know if I've missed any there, if there's anybody else kind of got a thought around where smart labeling, smart packaging could be used.
Yeah, maybe the expiry date management because it is key for many products, and what you see in real life practice that you still have to go out there in the shop to physically look at the expiry date. What we see with using NFC RFID technologies, then it's very easy to do this. It's connected to the expiry date. If it's a piece of meat in the shop, or if it's pharmaceutical at the pharmacist, you can do very easy inventory checking with handheld readers, and with that actually also checking the expiry dates. Our products getting close to expiry date, you can actually put them in promotion and still sell it and make money. And in the case of pharmaceuticals, yeah, you want to actually prevent selling those products because they can actually become hazards, and you're always concerned about patient health, of course, or actually put them up front in your shelf so you make sure you sell them. It's all about making more sales in the end.
Yeah, exactly, in the best way possible. There's another question in. I think I'll stay with you, Frank, because it's around the cost of packaging and smart labels. And basically, the question from Narlin is, the cost of packaging is a big factor. And I tried to implement and integrate a QR code or smart labels in India, but the market didn't seem mature enough to accept it right now. What do you feel about that? Have you done any smart labels in India?
Yeah, we sell a lot of smart labels and we do not always know where they end up. So I'm pretty sure we also sold in India. But it's a fair question. Costs of NFC compared to any printed technology is always higher. That's just a fact of life. But on the other hand, we see that with NFC, you can have way higher level of authentication. So it's really depending on the use case for sure. In the healthcare industry, we see that there is a need for, unclonable tabs, as we like to call them. It's something you cannot do with any QR code because they can be copied actually. And on the other hand, we also investigating new technologies like Paul was already mentioning. We also investing in startup companies that can bring down costs of microchips. That can actually can produce microchips at a 90% lower price than that we're currently using. So then all of a sudden you get into pennies instead of 10 to 15 cents for NFC tag. So and again, it's all about the use case. We see brands that they don't care about costs of it because they see so many benefits on the other side.
Yeah, I think you say it kind of comes down to what the use case is. If you're looking to understand the consumer, then perhaps you don't need to pay for the smart labels necessarily. But if you're looking for traceability or information around the storage, then of course you do. So there's all those different use cases, and it's about, I think, what the objective of the campaign and the brand is, and therefore then choosing the correct technology. Paul,
exactly.
There's loads of different opportunities for different verticals or different objectives. Have you seen any particular examples of brands that you liked? Any particular favourite connected experience campaign? And you don't have to mention.
Yeah. There's I mean, first thing I did was to have a look at our innovation zone platform, and we've actually searched under smart and intelligent packaging, and we had 332 examples there. So I think that demonstrates just how prevalent this market is really. There's an interesting Paco Rabanne one from which was doing the advertising rounds before Christmas, which is a refillable spray cap in the shape of a robot head. I just thought as a piece of packaging design, it was really standout, and it's like the idea of smart packaging sort of being related, the robot somehow being related to the technology. So and that's connected via an NFC connectivity, where so you can download music and enjoy AR, and you can imagine the AR is related to the robot and just things like that. So I just thought that was quite a distinctive execution that married a really unusual bottle design with the technology. So and there's quite a few sort of ones out there that use one extra area is which we haven't mentioned about the benefits is perhaps in the pharmaceutical industries where you could use smart bottles to encourage or influence the correct dosage of medicine. So there was a smart bottle that we featured just recently that was designed to do exactly that. So it would send reminders to the user to make sure that they took their medicine and didn't over medicate or under medicate. So there are some really good health opportunities there in an environment where people aren't perhaps can be trusted, if you like, to do their own medicine. So that's another example. But there's lots out there, and that's just two that I thought I would focus on.
Yeah, I mean, I quite like that example. That I like both of them, but the second one made me just think about different use cases, which we were just kind of talking about. And of course, it might be that perhaps you can't see very well, and the medicine packaging and those silly pieces of paper that go inside which I throw away, and I'm sure everyone else does immediately because they're annoying and they fall out. You know, if you can't see very well, being able to scan a QR code and hearing perhaps the audio of what needs to be done or how it needs to be administered or whatever is going to be much more important than getting a magnifying glass out and trying to read the instructions there as well. So I think there's quite a lot of use cases there. Again, not necessarily around marketing, but also around product information or usage or things around that as well.
There is an example in the market of exactly that. So of connecting to the pack and then playing an audio of the instructions that need to be. So for the partially sighted and blind, that could be a real enabler to make sure that they don't need to rely on anyone else. Absolutely.
Or then, I don't know, Angela, from a Tetra Pak perspective, perhaps recipes and ways to use food. Is that something that you can see happening for Connected Experiences your side?
Yeah, definitely. Why not? I mean, you can add recipes. You can, for example, if you have milk, you can give recipes for how to do a milkshake or something different. I mean, there's really tons of things that you can do with it. So it depends on which type of products you're landing. In terms of, in our case, it's more a QR code. So, but as you were also mentioning before, it can also be a matter of doing just like interviewing consumer on what can be the next flavor that they want to have in a particular category, and just engage also in that way. It can be mutual the way that you're giving recipes, but then you can also try to understand what they think is missing on the market in terms of flavors. And then produce accordingly. Yeah,
absolutely. So we've got this new year ahead of us. We're 1 month down. We've talked about some of the changes that are going on. Matt, what do you think are the biggest changes you expect to see this year?
Well, certainly based on my experiences so far, I think the stabilisation of raw material is a big change. It's going to be a challenge, but I think it's something that's got to happen. We've almost got to get back to a point where we can do business as usual. I think we're going to see a move towards, and again, from a digital perspective, this is something that I see, a move towards more sustainable production and people protecting their cash flow. Because again, it's not all about the pandemic, but what we have seen is lots and lots of companies, they don't want to do these big runs and stick them in the warehouse anymore. So there seems to be a massive increase in larger businesses protecting that cash flow, wanting to produce little and often, and make sure that whatever they produce is targeted and they're getting as much value out of it as possible, which I think is where connected packaging really comes into its own. So outside of that, I think what we've ultimately got to do is be careful that we don't go back to, so this is kind of relevant to changes, we don't go back to how things were. I think what we've got to do is take everything that's occurred, all the changes in consumer insight, consumer behaviour, and change the conversation in the packaging industry. So, I personally don't want people to go, oh, it's all over now. Now we can go back to how we used to do it. We can't. We've got to carry on innovating, and we've got to carry on changing. And my big thing is we've got to change the conversation. So that's going to be the challenge, and linked to that will be the changes I think that this year will bring, and beyond, probably for the next few years.
Yeah, definitely. Paul, what do you think?
I concur with Matt. I mean, he's on the coalface and delivering packaging on a day-to-day basis, so he's very well placed to understand some of those big challenges. I mean, I think there's always stuff going on in the background. So we've got things like the plastic packaging tax in the UK coming happening in a couple of months. So to be honest, lots of people are still focusing on delivering that. So I think when you can, I was going to say when you get rid of those distractions, but there's always something else coming down the line, whether it's EPR and so I guess it's more of the same, but maybe at a faster accelerating rate. Sort of maybe the sort of the momentum, but like a snowball rolling down a hill. Maybe this year we'll see more growth at a faster rate.
Angela, what do you think?
Agree with Matt with stabilizing again raw materials costs, because that's like on one side is for us production. On the other side, on consumer, is also having kids back to school, because there's still a lot of countries where kids are at home. So, and this is affecting consumption than like usage of products. So we are seeing certain categories that are much lower compared to the previous year. So let's say if we are going back to like new normal or again, or something that is close to the old normal, that would be, let's say, easier for everyone to operate.
Absolutely. Frank, over to you. What are the biggest changes you expect this year or in the next 12 months?
We definitely see that more and more big brands are thinking about sustainability. Yeah, we already spoke about it a few times. But we also see that connected packaging can actually be supporting this, either in making sure you have the right instructions, how to recycle your product. But we also see a trend for more refillable packaging, that you could actually use connected packaging to go back to your shop and you make sure the right content is actually coming into your refillable. Yeah, and as I mentioned before, this whole brand awareness discussion is more and more coming to us, that people are using connected packaging to authenticate the content, actually, making sure that what is in the bottle that is connected to the brand is really the genuine content that it should be. And that brings it back to the discussion on transparency of the supply chain, and making sure that your product has now been tampered with.
Absolutely. So more importance in terms of traceability, authentication, as well. So
exactly.
Big topics. And again, that's very different for different regions. So I think there's lots of good things that are going to be moving and changing this year. And hopefully, as Matt says, we won't be going back to how things were before. And I think from a business perspective, I think things have changed fundamentally. Which has changed people's mindsets, which I hope and I think will prevent people from going back to how things were before. But we'll yet to see. But a huge thank you to everyone. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Angela and Frank. Some really wonderful insights, fantastic comments, great questions from the audience. So thank you for that as well. Definitely learned some new nuggets, and I'm sure everyone else who's joined us today as well. It's definitely clear that connected packaging experience have reached a tipping point. There's so many more technologies available. There just needs to be a lot more education. I think there's a lot of work for us all on this call to do, and make sure that we are educating. But it's obviously increasingly important part of the marketing mix. So, of course, I'm sure anyone can reach out to yourselves. Anyone can reach out to myself, or see if we can help you find any efficient, cost-effective ways to collect data and look at that communication channel between customers in real time, or improve sustainability credentials. We will send an email out with all the recordings, so anyone who's registered will get the link to the recording. As always, feel free to email me with any questions, suggestions for either panelists or next topics. We'd love to hear from you. We are planning our next webinar for March, which will be looking at Web 3.0, the metaverse, how to use NFTs, blockchain and crypto, how to really make use of that in your marketing campaigns. So let me know if you want to hear about that. But for now, that's all for now. So thanks very much for joining and have a great rest of the day.